Hey, my name is John Santaferraro, and this is the Digital Analyst, where AI makes sense and digital dominance begins.
The Digital Analyst with John Santaferraro, powered by Insight Jam.
I have to say this. I am tired of trends and predictions, but there is one trend unfolding in 2025 that is so big, it deserves our attention. I would go so far as to say that if we ignore this trend, it will bite us. If we fail to understand what's happening, we could be eclipsed by the competition. We could put our reputation and brand at risk or end up losing investments that gouge our bottom line. I'm not talking about generative AI. I'm talking about AI agents. My guest today is the well-known and much-loved industry leader, Sanjeev Mohan, the principal analyst at SanjMo. When Sanjeev talks, I always listen because he spent most of his career working on the front lines of data analytics and now AI. As a former Gartner analyst, he has his finger on the pulse of what is happening all across our industry, and especially what's going on with AI agents. For today's podcast, we decided to jump on and just start recording. No script, no questions, no rehearsal, everything straight from the heart. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and join me in my Tuscan farm in the hills between Lucca and Florence, Italy. Join me for the Digital Analyst. So I woke up this morning thinking, how could I be so fortunate to have Sanjeev Mohan on my podcast? Sanjeev, a big digital welcome to the Digital Analyst. I am so glad you're here.
We must be on the same wavelength because I woke up with the same thought too. Wow, I get to be on John Santaferraro's podcast. How lucky I am. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Hey, you know what? We find ourselves right here at the end of the year, and I know that predictions are going wild, and I think people get tired of predictions, but you know what? We're going to make them anyway, right? And so I think that one of the biggest trends that we're going to see, we're already seeing it, I mean, is agentic AI and AI agents. And I said about 9 months ago, I said it is going to far surpass anything that we've seen with generative AI. Generative AI is going to get eclipsed. It's just the icing on the cake, and it is exploding. I can't believe. I think it's going to take off bigger than what we've seen with Gen AI. What do you think, Sanjeev? What is going to happen with agentic architectures in 2025?
If my thinking is on the right lines and everything pans out as it's going right now, I think if we were going to be speaking again this time next year, so which would be November, December timeframe of 2025, you will have a personal agent and I will have a personal agent, I think. So that's a prediction. So This is how pervasive I think agents are going to be. And basically an agent is like an assistant. It's just automating some of the most common things that I'm doing. So just like now we use AI, ChatGPT and other chatbots without even thinking, to do our searches and get more contextually rich information, I feel that's where agents are heading to next year.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I wonder how much we'll have to pay for that digital assistant, but that is absolutely going to happen.
So it's a very interesting point you bring up about payment, because I was just reading who would want to pay for agents, but I think that's not how it's going to pan out. What is going to happen is there's a value for time that we spend doing different tasks. If the agent is going to save me, give me higher value, then people will pay for it. I may not pay for a personal agent because at this point in my life, I feel pretty capable of handling my own day-to-day jobs. But if it's an organization and you have an SDR agent or a customer service agent that costs thousands of dollars, but you're going to save $80,000, $90,000 in the cost of having a constant rotation of employees joining, leaving, low job satisfaction. And I'm trying to be politically correct here because I don't want to say that a $2,000 agent will replace a $120,000 customer service rep. I'm just saying that some jobs are just not meant for human intellect, has high stress. And if an agent can do it for even a few $1,000s, it's a win-win.
I started by saying that Gen AI is going to get eclipsed by agentic AI, and that sort of begs the question of what is agentic AI. And I hear a lot of people defining AI agents as Gen AI agents. And that bothers me because AI agents are so far beyond what generative AI do, and generative AI may give an AI agent a voice, but Gen AI does not equal AI agents.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is your definition of agentic AI or AI agents?
Yeah, so I don't think we should pigeonhole AI agents into Gen AI agents. And the reason I'm saying that is because an AI agent has far more capabilities that go into even our existing system of records. That those are not Gen AI. All my various relational or document databases where I'm storing customer preferences. Why that is important is now let's go in and see what is a definition of an AI agent, or rather how does an AI agent work. So first of all, AI agents main program, it's a program designed to automate tasks and operations, either for personal use like humans, like I said, personal agent, or for an organization. It's like a digital twin, but with a twist. And the twist is that it is using Gen AI to get contextually rich information. But then it goes beyond that. So first of all, it understands who we are. So it has this ability to sense. Some of it comes from prompts, chain of thought, reasoning, instructions that we give to Gen AI. So, for example, I may say, I am a customer support agent who is new at my job, and I'm trying to handle this difficult customer, but I want a proper resolution. So, I've given this environment. So, I'm giving Gen AI this sense of what my environment is so it can perceive. Now, Gen AI will take that and it'll reason and it'll say that's step number two. It'll say, okay, based on my understanding of the environment and the desired outcomes, I'm going to break it down into a number of steps. Then come the whole planning phase of there could be many ways to achieve those subtasks, but which is the most optimal way? Once I have that plan of action, then I have to orchestrate those. And by orchestrating means I have to now maybe I have to call an API, what we call a functional call, a function call to an external system. Maybe I need to go understand this customer who I indicated has a problem. What is their history of purchases and what are their preferences? What are their location? And so on. All that information could be in my Snowflake or Databricks or Oracle or MongoDB. You see? So now I've gone past the Gen AI. So this is how we work. So there are 4 steps: sense, reason, plan, and act.
Yep. Yep. Beautiful. Yeah, that is very similar. I've been talking about, again, a simple definition that a AI agent is a piece of software that is able to reason and learn, to be able to act, react, and interact and adapt, right? To be able to change as it goes. But, from my perspective, I think that it's got to be able to do anything that I would do, to think like I think. So
Yeah.
therefore, it does have to have access to my personal data. It's got to have access to my data, my documents. I just did a session, a keynote at an event, and one of the things I was talking about was this idea that just building on what you just said, that every AI agent will probably need agentic BI to be a part of it. Because right now, the agentic BI is focusing on how do you get at the data, and then how do you combine it with the other knowledge that it has. And what I don't see happening is people out there creating AI agents with the same ability to analyze data and deliver insight or be able to act based on insight the way that analytics platforms have developed that and matured that over the last 25 years. So one of the trends that I think we'll see in 2025 is we will see agentic BI becoming foundational to every AI agent.
Very interesting. Agentic BI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about when you say agentic BI, there are different types of agents. There are agents that are geared to perform a certain task, like customer service, or my personal agent. There are agents that perform a organizational task, so that like supply chain, which may have different touch points with inventory and production, transportation. So that's a process agent. And then there's a role agent, which is I'm a uh, I'm an auditor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a data engineer. So go perform my most common automate my most common task. So I see this is how we will see a multitude of agents. In fact, if you think like uh, I think it was Salesforce at their Dreamforce conference in September. They said there are already 10,000 agents out there. And then Microsoft has, at the Ignite conference in November, talked about agents being built at a very rapid clip these days. So for anyone who's holding back or or being a skeptic, I think it's time to take a look. I even think the ERP applications, these massive monolithic accounts receivable, payroll, HR systems may get disaggregated into a bunch of agents that perform very specific tasks.
Yeah. I think we will see because we have moved from ERP to things like robotic process automation and process mining. Um, Basically, we have a ton of data, and any place where we have a rich set of data and there are many step tasks and manual tasks that are involved in the midst of that, those become great opportunities for AI agents, especially the process-based agents. And so I think especially we're going to see vendors in the RPA space and in the process mining space, they're going to explode into this because they have all the data. They understand all of the processes, and they understand the processes not just in the business areas, marketing, sales, human resources, manufacturing, all of that, but they have very deep industry specific knowledge as well to be able to fine tune what is happening with AI agents in those industries. So I think you're right on. I think we're going to see an explosion or in just major advancement probably from what's happening with the vendors in those spaces, RPA and process mining.
Very true. I think you are right. Absolutely. Because the hardest part is understanding the processes. Everything else you can figure out, the technology is not the challenge. So these RPAs, which are today built on some set of rigid rules, now they can change the engine to be more foundation model driven, and then put an orchestration layer on top, then they are already in a very good space because they understand the entire end-to-end business process. But by changing the technology aspects, they can actually get into this agent space very easily.
What do you think about this? You're talking about changing the engine beneath. I think what might happen or could happen is that those rules that are in robotic process automation, for example, those rules could become the guardrails. Those rules become the
Yeah.
governance, because you don't want an AI agent who can do whatever they want to do. So those rules that allow somebody to automate business processes today, do you think they could become the guardrails?
So there are two ways of looking at it. And by the way, this we are having this discussion on the fly. This is none of this is, you know, system two thinking. This is like literally system. It's like, okay, so what could be the use of those rules? So one, yes, they could be used as guardrails. Uh, but the reason I'm saying there's another use of that is because data is dynamic. And what if my data changes or environment changes? Then I don't want to be hampered or hindered by the existing rules. But I can use the rules to do agent evaluation. This is a topic that has not yet been spoken a lot. We've talked about evaluating models, but what about agents? To evaluate an agent, I need to give it a very specific set of Q&A questions and then see what kind of answers am I getting and are those answers correct or not. So those rules could be like, here are the questions. So you can use, so RPA companies can use the rules to evaluate if the agent is accurate or it's hallucinating.
Yeah, well, you know what? It hasn't been said very much, but now I think we can just attribute it to Sanjeev Mohan. That Sanjeev said that we will be evaluating agents and we need a framework to be able to do that. And we're going to get that
Yeah.
stuff from some of the rules that exist now in places like robotic process automation. I love it.
We'll see. It's green field. It's a great time
Yeah.
for us in this industry right now.
Want more Insight Jam? Follow us on Instagram for exclusive content like a daily dose of best practices and buying advice from industry experts and leading solution providers. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel for long-form highlights from our expert panel discussions. The Solutions Review team is hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so don't miss out.
Another trend that I think is going to be important is, and I think this is probably going to be towards the end of the year, we'll see a whole number of platforms emerging as agentic architectures, specifically to be able to do two things: governance and multi-agent interactions.
Mhm.
Right now, multi-agent is, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a concept. I'm not seeing it happening, and I think it will. I think it's gonna explode, but it can't explode until we have a solid platform that is designed to be able to facilitate and monitor what's going on in these multi-agent interactions. What are your thoughts?
Yep. We are still in pretty early innings of agents. We have the frameworks that are coming up to help us build these agents. So what is needed is this multi-agent orchestrator or resource coordinator. I see Salesforce, for instance. Again, I'm just mentioning Salesforce for the second time here because they launched in September something called Agent Force. But again, I think their orchestration capabilities are limited to their own package because their entire idea is that there be tens of thousands or millions of these agents built on Salesforce Data Cloud for mainly sales and marketing functions, but not really a very generic way of doing this. But then there are other frameworks that are coming up. There is something called LangGraph, from LangChain, which is very popular. Microsoft also is making strides. They have something called AutoGen, which has this magentic concept. The list goes on and on. Not to leave out AWS and Google Cloud, because again, they too, Google Cloud has made a lot of strides using Gemini models and Vertex AI, and then AWS has Bedrock. So these are some of the big ones, but IBM has B framework, Crew.ai is quite popular. So we are going to see an explosion, but these frameworks will have certain sort of bent, like Microsoft will be more enterprise ready than maybe Salesforce. And, so we see how this multi-agent orchestrator piece gets developed.
Yeah. And it's got to break out of the Gen AI, because even some of the ones you mentioned seem to be focused heavily on generative AI. And in order to work in the agent world, a multi-gen AI agent framework isn't going to work for AI agents. They're radically different. So it's got to break out of that. I think it will. It'll be interesting if there are some of the newer companies that have big funding and that's all they do. What's going to come out of Anthropic? What's going to come out of even Hugging Face, because they already are managing all of these models, right? Could it come out of a developer platform? I don't think we necessarily know where it's going to emerge. I love when there's these kinds of convergences, right? Where you see, multiple areas of our coverage that are trying to do the same kind of thing, and we got to try and figure out who the winners are going to be, but it's not easy.
John, you're absolutely right. So talking about what we are going to see happen, let's look back at the early days of cloud. When the cloud model came into existence, that led to creation of a lot of SaaS companies. SaaS companies, we used to joke in the early days, a SaaS company was basically a MySQL DB database, a MySQL database with some wrapper on top. That wrapper gave you some workflow and a user experience, and you declared it as a SaaS company. That was the initial days. 17,000 SaaS companies have been created in the last 2 decades. 337 of them are unicorns.
Wow.
Now, if we fast forward to today, we've got the first phase of AI companies go what? Wrappers around LLMs. Now we are going into agents. So they're doing some pretty heavy duty reasoning, orchestration, creating a mesh of agents. And we are going to see the same thing. So we had 17,000 SaaS companies, we'll have 17,000 AI companies, and how many of them will be successful? Time will tell. We don't know.
Given that, and I agree with you, by the way, I think what you just said is right on. I think that it is going to be that kind of an explosion, which means that in 2025, I think we're going to start seeing more headlines about people who deployed our AI agents and even generative AI at that point, and they got bit by it. There was a major loss. There was a lawsuit. There was something done that was outside of regulatory requirements. There was something done that sort of defaced the brand of the company. I think we will see. I think people are rushing to get the agentic architectures into place, and I think there are going to be major mistakes made, and it is going to happen in 2025.
Yep, it is. So this reminds me, both the CEOs of Facebook and Alphabet have said that there are risks in making massive investments. So they're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in training models. But the danger of not investing and being completely written away in the future is much higher than the risk of investing. So I'm sure you've seen those statements. So same thing holds for businesses too. It's like, yes, there's massive risk in having a first mover advantage, but then you also need to build out your expertise within an organization. So you need to take calculated risk. Some will work, some will not. Some initiatives may have a good return and some may not. But unless you get yourself into the arena, you don't really know what's going to happen. So it's a very tough decision, and my heart goes out to CFOs and CDOs whose job is on the line to make these decisions. But that's how I see things are at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, another trend I think we'll see in 2025 is that the especially executive teams will be going back to school. And I don't mean that they're probably not going to go back to university, but they need to get an education in artificial intelligence because they have already invested, they already have AI and AI agents and generative AI in their budgets for 2025. But I'm not sure that they even fully understand how do you measure it? How do you keep an eye on it? How do you make sure that the money that you're going to invest is going to bring a return on investment? How do you know you're investing in the right thing? How do you know what the capabilities are to be able to do it? So there's a huge opportunity in 2025 to educate especially executive teams. I think it has to happen in the organization as well, but AI literacy will be on every budget for 2025, and if it's not, I think that those companies could be in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
Yeah. Do you have any sense for AI literacy and what that might look like? And maybe it's even something that is done by an AI agent. I don't know what it's going to look like, but from your perspective, what needs to be done there?
So, I your point on getting an organization ready for AI includes, the often repeated people process technology. You have to have the right organization strategy. Uh, so we've talked quite a bit about technology. So let's put technology aside. So let's talk about people and process. So from an organization point of view, the first thing the CDO needs to do is not get fixated on which large language model should I use, or how do I build an AI agentic architecture, but they should align themselves with the business objectives. Understand where the problems are, where the costs can be saved. And so that's how first you need to align with the business team. And then you need to build a culture, because AI agents are based on foundation models that are probabilistic. And if you've got people who are used to dashboards and they get absolutely accurate number every single time they go to the dashboard, assuming data hasn't changed, that may not happen for AI. So this AI literacy that you're talking about, this gets very interesting, because we need to understand there's a place for deterministic SQL based dashboards and queries, and there's a place for more creative decision making, but pushing the envelope using agents in the Gen AI space. So that, to me, is how we need to. So we need to get away from saying that AI hallucinates. Yes, AI hallucinates. Yes, we need better reasoning capabilities. RAG and some of these things can help with accuracy. Graph RAG is being talked about. But at the end of the day, AI is probability. So we can never expect 100% accuracy.
Yeah, I just taught a session at at insightjam.com at their big event, and my session was called "How to Spot an AI Imposter." And
I love that. Yeah.
it's what's happening right now, because so much money has been pumped into generative AI and into agentic AI. We've got some imposters out there. We've got people who have taken money and they have built a beautiful demo. And if you look underneath the covers, there's not the richness that needs to be there. Unfortunately, in 2025, another trend is going to be people are going to be sorry about their investment. They're going to find out that they either invested a lot of money in a company, or that they've bought that as a product for their company, and there's nothing under the covers. There's nothing under the hood. It's just a thin layer of AI. It's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, and that is going to happen. That is got nothing to do with AI encouraging imposters. All that has to do with every new technology. Every new technology has led to some bad elements trying to abuse it and trying to do all kinds of wrong things. So that happens with every new technology.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today.
I'm going to throw this one out to you because you probably know this even better than me. Who are the winners going to be in 2025? And I'm not even asking from a vendor perspective, but what areas of technology are going to be the winners? And I'll give you some examples. I see both in the data world that we live in. I see API orchestration vendors trying to become the orchestration for AI agents because they already run applications. I see data integration companies, because they're used to integrating so much, trying to be the orchestration layer for AI agents. I see some of the big vendors like the cloud vendors. They want to be who's gonna be, what areas of our technology are going to be the winners, and how are they going to win?
So who's going to be winners and who are going to be the losers? That's the other question. So let's talk about losers first, because I really feel that LLMs are a commodity. There's so many models that I feel that a lot of model providers are going to have a very, very hard time being in business. I was just reading, it took a few $100 million to train Llama 3.1 by Meta. And Mark Zuckerberg said to train Llama 4, it'll be $1 billion to train one model. So the cost is going up for these players. And so who will be the winners? Cloud providers, absolutely. Not just cloud providers, but I'm not over the hyperscaler like AWS, Microsoft, and Google Cloud, but even Meta or OpenAI, hopefully, maybe Anthropic. So those are the two model companies, but XAI. So companies that are super well funded already and have a cash cow elsewhere will be able to make this kind of investment. Now, if we also look at who is going to make money based on the stack. So it's a common knowledge that when a new technology comes out, the value or the money that's made slowly goes from the lowest level high up. So for example, NVIDIA is right now making a ton of money because they are the lowest level providing GPUs and the CUDA framework. At a higher level are the cloud providers that are providing either the models or the frameworks or some vertical solutions. but the winners will be at the layer above. These are the people who will be creating either agents or solutions, some AI applications that will serve businesses. So that's where I see, and those companies, some of them exist. There are some companies that are already making money in the paralegal space, but I think those companies are yet to be formed. The majority of them will be formed in 2025 and beyond.
Well, then we know the big winners are going to be the power companies and
Yes.
the technology companies who are buying power companies, apparently.
There's a friend of mine who's in real estate, and I was telling him that, you do commercial real estate. Have you looked at data centers? And he had no idea. And then all of a sudden, he's now literally looking at data centers 24 by 7 because our company's data center. So again, I put them all in the infrastructure. They are the ones who are
Yes.
making most money right now.
And what other trends? I'm probably missing some. Any other trends that you're thinking of for 2025?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time talking about agents, but I've mentioned reasoning a few times. We are still not very good with reasoning. O1 from OpenAI is still preview, and it's been out for a few weeks, which seems like eternity in our space. So at least at the time we are recording, it's preview, but it's expected that we'll probably have O2 or something like that, but whatever it may be. But reasoning needs to improve. We are seeing so many new developments with language models, with the context lens becoming really big. So small language models are going to rise. A big change that we are starting to see is with open source models becoming really good. There are a lot of Chinese models like Alibaba's Quen and DeepSeek. It's like every day I'm reading. So open source models may actually overtake these proprietary models, which takes us back to the previous question about who are the winners and losers. Because then you spend $1 billion training a model, but then
Wow.
there's an open source model that outperforms you. There goes your moat.
Wow, it is definitely a little bit of the wild, wild west out there. I agree with you, especially on the small language models becoming much more important in 2025. Do you think that there's a way to be able for companies to create small language models with differentiation because of insight that they have, or is I don't. I actually don't fully understand. I'd love to get your take on that. What's going on with these small language models?
It is a bit confusing because I was of the opinion that small language models will take off, but now now I'm starting to see that with the advent of more or better models with more data, synthetic data sometimes. I'm not sure how fast the small language model space is growing. So I could be mistaken. I think the jury is still out on whether organizations will create their own small language models or they will use some combination of RAG, continuous fine tuning, large context windows, and these more advanced models to get the same effect. So it's at this point, I don't have a clarity.
And maybe it also depends on the industry, right? I know that there are for a lot of companies, they have to produce their own language models because that's what is proprietary for them. That's where their differentiation is. I had John Thompson on my podcast a couple of months back, and he basically works for EY, and he's got about 100 people on his team building out an agentic architecture. And think of all of the knowledge that exists in these big consulting companies that is in their knowledge systems, and the ability to somehow capture that knowledge and be able to, agentify it, to be able to put it into a persona, to a consultant agent, a auditing agent, all of these different types of capabilities. Well, they can't afford to, they can't get that from somebody else. They actually have to train it on internally on their own data to be able to maintain differentiation. So I think there will be an opportunity for people to differentiate themselves by using their own models.
Yes, there's no argument. There is a need for small language models. I'm just wondering, what is the time frame of that? Has it been slowed down? Because all this institutional knowledge, if I have a 1 million token window, context window, can I just pass it? But then the question is, what is the cost and of doing that, and latency? So there's no questions that small language models are the future. But when we get there is the question I'm dealing with in my head.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a final question out there, and I'm going to ask you to go out on a limb. So if a lot of times we end up doing these predictions, and it's so obvious, right? And then here's the question. Let me just give it to you. What in 2025? What is one thing that you think might happen? And big risk kind of thing. I think that this. I'll give you an example. I think that in 2025 that there will be multi-level, not just multi-agent, but you'll have levels of agents as well that will come out, so that you have agents who are monitoring agents who are monitoring agents. So some of the same hierarchies that we see, and because of that, there's going to be the emergence of these governance models that are actually complicated enough and matrixed enough to be able to handle that. That's kind of putting myself out on the limb. That's probably further out than 2025, but I think at the rate that things are moving, something like that could happen. Anything pop out to you? Go out on a limb, Sanjay. What do you think might happen in 2025?
I actually, when you asked me that, I'm just thinking we are going to have a change in the administration in this country. And I think regulations will be out the window. And everything that you said may happen because we probably have unfettered explosion of trying different things without worrying about regulations. So
wow. Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, Sanjay, thank you so much for joining the Digital Analyst. What a pleasure to be able to have this conversation with you, and to do it without no rehearsal, no questions pre-planned. Thank you.
I hope you're right. And we don't look like fools next year if we talk at this time. And it turns out that agents were one massive crash and burn event. And then, so that happens too. But
you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for joining today's podcast with Sanjeev Mohan. I'm guessing you may want to hear a little more from his brilliant mind, and you can find just that at SanjMo.com. That's SanJMO.com. Follow him on his YouTube channel or Medium blog with a simple search for his name. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure to like and subscribe to the Insight Jam YouTube channel, where you can dig deep into the world of technology. You can find me on LinkedIn. Let's connect, have a conversation, share a glass of wine, or find a way to make this world a better place using technology. And of course, join me in a couple of weeks for another episode of The Digital Analyst.